Hi, I'm Katherine LeBlanc, and you're listening to my podcast host, where we help franchise systems bring their most important messages to life through podcasting. Each episode is a real conversation designed to sound like the kind of communication franchisees actually listen to: practical, human, and rooted in experience. Come on in. Today's conversation features Mitch Cohen. Mitch is a multi-brand franchisee with more than 37 years of experience, currently operating Jersey Mike's Subs and Sola Salon Studios, after getting his start with brands like Dunkin, Baskin-Robbins, and Nathan's Famous. He's also a partner at Performax Franchisee Advisors, where he helps operators fine-tune operations, training, and leadership using real-world, in-the-field experience. Hey, Mitch, thanks for joining us today.
Hey, Katherine, thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you. So you and I first met a couple of years ago, and through Performax, your consulting firm, where you work with brands on really whatever they need. And we worked together on an emerging brand, and I just was so impressed with the knowledge that you and your partners brought to the table. I couldn't think of a better person to talk to about franchisee best practices and kind of what the potential is for franchisees in this space. So I'm going to jump right in, and I'd like to start kind of at the beginning. So you've built a very unique portfolio, and what's interesting is you kind of started in food and now you're in Sola Salon, and I'm excited to hear kind of how that's going. But before we get into all of that, can you give us kind of a quick rundown of how exactly did you get here?
It's not quick since it's more than 37 years worth of information, but I'll do my best to give you a quick summary. I literally got into franchising by accident, quite honestly. Getting out of school, my whole goal was to work for a corporation, actually the Philip Morris Corporation, where I was working during college. Ended up coming back to New York from going to school in Illinois and finding a job at Baskin-Robbins in the evenings. I worked at a bank during the day. And after a few months of discussions with the owner, the franchisee, and his partners, they decided to ship me out to training and become a franchisee and partner with them. And we were able to grow that, just the Baskin-Robbins side of the business, up to 15 units in 3 different states. That's really where I cut my teeth and got most of my learning. In early 2000, actually in 2000, we decided to move on and partner with Dunkin' Donuts and be a Dunkin' Donuts franchisee as well. And that took a little bit of adjusting, not the same product, early morning people looking for their coffee, probably not as friendly as they should be till they got their first cup of coffee type of situation. So it took a little bit of learning for us to get there. We also grew that brand into also over 15 units, but all in one state, in the state of New York, particularly on Long Island. In 2016, we sold the business to a PE company. We exited, and at that point, I thought I was going to retire. And instead, we created Performax Franchise Advisors. And at that point, I partnered with Tam Kennedy and Tom Baber, who are individuals in the franchising space with different skill sets than myself. And we thought by doing that, we would be able to go and kind of monetize our education and our time in franchising to help emerging brands and existing brands grow constructively, and especially on the emerging side, not make some of the mistakes we made as we were growing. Mm-hmm. And as I was taking off, I reconnected with my original partnership, and we ended up purchasing the rights to Jersey Mike's on Long Island. And in 2018, we built our first Jersey Mike's. We're currently up to 9 units. I just opened my 9th unit in December. And then at the same time as I was building that portfolio and being part of the IFA board and learning about all these other brands, I learned about the salon suite business. And we signed on with Sola Salon Studios in 2019. We just opened our 4th in November, and it's a completely different business. But using what we learned in the hospitality business, we're able to grow the salon business because we're using those same techniques with our stylists that we would use for our regular guests.
Yeah. I think that you are probably the avatar that most franchise brands are looking for when they're looking to bring on a new franchisee. When I talk to franchise brands, they all seem to be going after the same target, an already successful franchisee with multiple locations that's looking to expand their portfolio. And you and I know that that pool of people is pretty small. And I think you said something interesting when you talked about, grew Baskin-Robbins to this kind of what anybody would consider a successful moment of multiple locations, multiple states, decided to go and expand your portfolio with a different brand. And there was a period of adjustment. I'd love to hear about what is, and I'm sure that that has taught you how to enter into new systems successfully and kind of get the wheels going faster as you enter into those new brands. What are some of the differences or some of the places that you have to adjust as you're getting into a different brand?
Well, I think it really starts with the first brand you're in and your goal setting for, do I want to be a multi-brand unit or
Mm-hmm.
multi-unit operator, right? It's two
Yeah.
different sets, but it starts with people understanding and building the infrastructure in the direction that you want to go. Understanding there's forks in the road all the time, and we have to be able to, I hate to use the word because it became popular during COVID, but pivot,
Yeah.
right, at certain times. But when you're looking at growing a single brand into multi-units, it's a little bit easier. The structure, you could build your people, your resources, and then deploy them as you are comfortable in looking at growing your units. On the multi-brand side, you really need to start thinking about, one, am I going to develop the people internally to be able to work with this new brand that I'm going after?
Mm-hmm.
Or do I start with zero on people and
Mm-hmm.
find the people that fit into that brand? I prefer to try to grow with the existing people because I know their talent set, their skills. I know how I can get them to grow. And if they're interested also in expanding their portfolio and their education so that they could grow with me, then I could now bring in the brand. I could bring them to the brand ahead of
Mm-hmm.
time, start training, and then grow from there. So, long answer to your question is the biggest difference between being a single unit multi operator versus a multi brand operator is in the path that you want to take with your people resources. And it's the story of the chicken or the egg, right? Which comes
Right.
first. And so I believe if I have a pool of people resources, I could then bring them into the brand and it makes that transition much easier.
Well, and I think that that's a great place to focus because whenever I talk to franchisees of successful locations, it is all about the people. And they have developed a culture within their operations or in their own organization that helps them achieve their ultimate goals, right? They're not doing it alone, they're doing it with those people. As a franchisee, how do you build that internal culture and internal organizational kind of direction while working with the franchise's brand and culture and kind of what they believe in, right? So from a marketing standpoint, we always talk about branding, positioning, establishing your core values, because that's really how you're going to inform what the customer experience is, because it goes from what you develop on the marketing materials to what you develop in the training materials to then how the customer interacts with the brand. And so in franchising, we develop all of this right at the headquarters, corporate or home office, whatever you want to call it, and then it cascades down to the franchisee. But again, the most successful franchisees are taking that and developing their own organizational culture. And so I'd love to hear how you kind of, if you work with the brand's culture or if you really establish your own, and how that those two things work together.
Great question. So I find culture to be another word that gets thrown around a lot in the
Yes.
industry. I look more at values than culture, right? And because every brand, like you just said, every brand is going to have its own culture at the franchisor level. And then that makes it difficult for me if I have a strict culture to be able to move those people in and be able to marry up with the culture. So I look at values. If the brand has values that match or are close to matching my values that I have in my organization, then that transition is easier. And our culture, if you want to call it that, is really based on values, and it's based on being honest, responsible, respectful. Very, I don't have a list of 20 different values. We got to keep it simple. And when I look at the evolution of my career and the employment pool, right? To me, it's always been about keeping it simple. And today, in today's world, keeping it simple is most important for the team members that we're bringing on, right? Short attention span, ready to move at any given notice onto the next big shiny penny, whatever it is. So I look at these three values. We have a couple others, but to me, those are the most important, and those could fit into any brand. And then we can establish ourselves around that brand.
Okay.
Look, for Jersey Mike's example, that brand itself, right? It's very philanthropic, which happens to meet one of our values. It's teaching our employees about self-esteem and being outgoing and talking to the guests. On the Sola brand, we have no employees. The culture is what's in the studio, but the values that we bring to the studio are the same. We're still going to treat our stylists with respect. We're still going to be responsible. So that's why I'm saying it's more of a value thing to me than a culture thing. And each studio, believe it or not, has its own culture because it's its own community, based on stylists and beauty professionals are artists at heart. And so they create a community and a culture that they can exist in. And I just become part of that, but I just add the value piece.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great kind of foundation. And a great way to look at how you can maintain flexibility to become a multi-brand operator while still maintaining your own culture. I think that's super smart. Now, as a multi-unit, multi-brand operator, you can't be everywhere at once. And so how are your leaders aligned? What is that alignment process that you put in place that makes sure that everyone is operating on those values at all times?
So I have partners, and in my partnership, we each have a different vertical. So we can each do each other's job, obviously, but to get the teams aligned in where they are and focused, we have individual verticals. And so that's where it starts at the top, right? So you're right. I can't be everywhere at once, and neither can my partners. So we have one partner that truly focuses on the salon side, working with the leasing side of things and trying to help with the stylist. I'm kind of at the overview to try to make sure that we're all communicating and working together and problem solving. On the Jersey Mike side, I'm on the operations side, and each one of my managers reports to an area manager, and the area manager report to me. We have weekly meetings with the managers, area managers, and myself. And then we have monthly meetings with the area managers and the managers reviewing their P&Ls. And then I have quarterly meetings on the Jersey Mike side. Thursday, coincidentally today, every Thursday, we have a partners meeting. And so we are communicating on Thursdays, although we communicate all week, but our top line and our objectives and our wins, what's important now for the week, for the previous following week, and reviewing what happened the previous week happens on Thursday. And so there's several meetings that take place. I am not a real big meeting person, but to align everybody, we feel that this is our best path.
Yeah, gets everybody on the same page. I love too that you are empowering your managers to own their own P&L and bring that to the meeting. And really, I think that's sometimes where in any business, whether it's a small business, a medium-sized business, or a large business, your leadership can almost be a roadblock to empowering the company to grow if you're not giving access and transparency to your employees to really feel ownership on what they're doing.
Yeah, one of the things that we do on the Jersey Mike side is every Tuesday is when we meet with the managers to review the weekly P&L. Basically, some of their costs that go into the P&L, but their bonus is off of EBITDA. So they are in control of that P&L. And if they're not looking to make more money, then I can't make more money. So we think that having them bonused off of controllable costs that they have is really a big push to showing growth. And it also shows me who's very involved in their day-to-day
Mm-hmm.
operations and what their strengths are and weaknesses are, and then how we can help them get better.
That's awesome. So one thing that you mentioned earlier was around keeping things simple. So simple, simple, simple. And I we talk about that a lot in any franchise brand that I'm in. And as a marketer, one time I was on a panel and one of the jokes was it was an operator marketing panel. And one of the jokes from the operator was, marketing likes to, roll out these 15-page rollout guides. And I was like, oh no, they're talking to me. That is absolutely what I do. So what's one thing that you had to learn over time to uncomplicate? What were you overcomplicating that you had to kind of fix?
So first of all, I agree with the operator that was calling out marketing.
I heard it. I heard it.
When I sit on panels as well, before I answer your question, and this
Mhm.
comes up a lot, right? Because if something's not working, it's marketing's fault, and if the marketing's
Mhm.
not working, it's the operator's fault. And part of, and some of it is the way the calendar is structured and how quick we roll things out, and not give
Mhm.
employees a chance to actually learn the process. And what I stole from somebody else, and I don't even know the gentleman's name. I wish I did because I'd love to give him credit. Is if on the marketing, on the brand side, if you want to do something with a franchisee or a manager, don't give me a novel, give me a page. And so I've taken that lesson that gentleman called out, and I use it all the time. And one day I'm going to use it, and he's going to go, "That's what I said," and I'll get to meet him and get his name, so I can give him the credit. But what I've done is I'll take corporate information, franchisor information, and I will make it simple. I'll pull the key points out,
Mhm.
and I take on that role and I take it very seriously, so that I can activate properly.
Mhm.
And the other thing that I try to simplify in the food space is how soon can you get me the information so I could pre-train, pre-educate my team before it rolls out. Don't give me something 2 weeks in advance and say we're doing it when 2 weeks from now. I might not see five of my team members in 2 weeks, or my
Mhm.
managers might. And so to me, it's give me a schedule for the year. If you could play it out 18 months, even better. Get me the information as soon as you can. I know I'm probably in the minority. I don't want to read everything that you send. So I try to skinny it down and then give it to my team.
I certainly don't think you're in the minority. I think that is definitely something that is a back and forth communications. We need more communication, but then when we send communication, it's not read. And to your point, sometimes it's too much, and we don't need novels. One thing that you said that I hope the people that are listening kind of take away is you're taking the information that you're getting and you are customizing it to your team. You're customizing it to how is your team going to digest this information, and how does it fit in your operations? I really love that you are taking the reins on making sure that is appropriate for your team.
Yeah, it really helps, Catherine. To be honest with you, knowing your team members and their ability to pay attention for more than 60 seconds, or somebody that really wants to dig into the weeds, is important. And so I believe, and I believe my team who has been with me, I have a very low turnover rate, and I think part of that is because I'm working with them and not at them, and I'm doing what they need to help them succeed and not make it a job frustrating.
Yeah. Well, and I think as a franchisor, listening and hearing, if I can develop materials for the franchisee to then customize for their team, that looks a lot different, right? Because when we're developing materials, to your point, we're trying to develop materials for every single personality that may be involved. We're trying, it needs to speak to the franchisee, it needs to speak to the team member, etc. But if there's a rhythm of, here's the information you need to then distill it down for your team, I think that feels like a better system for communication. Now, I want to switch gears on you a little bit and talk about, your journey from franchisee to consultant and advisor to franchisors, because I think this is such a unique offering and so powerful. I want to know, at some point, you obviously started getting asked for help, right? Because you are a successful franchisee. And so, like you said, you turned to your partners and said, hey, working together, we can really develop and offer a full service here. What made you say, hey, I can really help here? This is what I can bring to the table.
So it all started over a lunch, quite honestly, an innocent lunch in the middle of Traverse City, Michigan, at a meeting that we were at. And, I said, yeah, I've been working with so and so and trying to help them locate the proper franchise for them to invest in. And then Tom said, that's funny because I'm working with this franchisor who needs help on a marketing side of things. And Tam said, that's funny because I'm working with a franchisee in the ice cream space who needs help in developing team members. And it was just like an epiphany right there. It was like, wait a second, we're doing this because we want to get back to franchising. And that's great. But I said, if you look at all our disciplines and we agree that we could work together, we could put together probably the only company in the industry that is owned, operated, and by franchisees that are actually boots on the ground working with franchisors and franchisees. And we really started thinking about working with underperforming franchisees and helping the franchisor take the pressure off their field business consultants, working with these underperforming franchisees. And it morphed into, as we started talking to franchisors, but we need help in this discipline, and we need help in relationships, and we need help in P&Ls. And so we decided that we want to become advisors in the marketplace, monetize it, but not at a very high level, not take on multiple clients at a time, but one client for a longer period of time, so that they would get three of us. They'd get somebody with a marketing discipline, somebody with operations, well, two of us with operations. But to be honest, Tam's kind of the glue that holds us together, because I'm just like, give me the keys and I'm running. And
Right.
she's like, wait a second, I got to pull you back because we need to dot every I and cross every T before we put it in the language that we would do in our business, which is customize it so that the team members and the franchisee would understand. So we took our learnings that we do in our own business and we put it into our advisory business. And, we've worked with a brand like that you were in, that at the time only had 2 corporate locations. And we were able to put together a really good program within the training, helping get trainers open the store and things like that. And since then, we've been doing it multiple times. We just worked with another very large brand, actually, that you're familiar with. They needed their manuals updated. They had no plan on making single unit operators into multi-unit operators. And so we were able to help the training department teach their existing franchisees how to grow based upon our experience of being multi-unit operators.
Wow, that can be really powerful. And I think too, what you bring to the table, and you nailed it, it's franchisees working for franchisees. And you're working through the headquarters to then make an impact and give back, as you said. So what types of brands do you work with that you feel like you make the biggest impact?
It's kind of a loaded question because our whole goal is to make an impact and not to be there forever. So we've done a handful of food brands. We've done some doggy daycare brands. The doggy daycare brand, I think we made a huge impact on for setting up their standards and operating procedures. We are currently working with a data company that's in the industry right now, advising on how to put together a multi-unit platform dashboard so that the software could, start communicating for multi-brand, multi-unit operators. So we've kind of do a lot of different things. Our goal is always to leave the company better than when we started. And I think we've been successful all but once. And we actually fired ourselves from that client because they didn't want to take any of our advice.
Okay. Well, you know where you fit and you know where you don't, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Mitch. And my last question for you today is, if a franchisee is listening and wants to level up, what is one thing that they should do in the next 90 days?
Wow, one thing in the next 90 days. I would say if their people are in place, the next thing they need to do is make sure that their back of the house financials are in order and that their money resources are in place or going to go into place. And to do that, you need to make sure that you are very current and up to date on your financial information and have it at a moment's notice to trigger financing.
Wow, that is really practical and something that especially for folks who are single unit operators, usually they feel, well, not, I won't say usually, but as a generality, sometimes it feels like small business operators are happy as long as there's money in the bank. And you're saying, yes, that's great, but if your books are not in order, that money is less likely to grow.
Yes, and a quick story back in the 80s when we were looking to grow, it was an ice cream business. There were no royalties at the time. And so everything that came out to us. And we were very successful. But when we went to the bank, they're like, where's the money? And so they're like, sorry, till you get your paperwork in order and you show us that you can pay your bills through the business, we're not interested. So it was early learning for me. But today, the way data is driven and the way the banks are looking at things, and especially if you're working with a bank that's familiar with franchising, having that information clean and ready to go is so powerful.
I love that. So if people wanted to learn more about PerformX, where should they go?
So we have a website, www.pmax.com. They can go in, check out our website. Happy to entertain all inquiries. If we can't help you, we'll tell you we can't help you and we'll direct you hopefully to somebody that can.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for hanging out with us today, Mitch, and for all of the nuggets of wisdom that you dropped on us.
Oh, thanks for having me, Catherine. I'm happy to be here and happy to join you whenever you need me.
If you're a franchise leader looking for a better way to share best practices, reinforce culture, and make important messages actually stick, internal podcasting can help. To learn more about how My Podcast Host brings these conversations to life, visit mypodcasthost.com. I'm Katherine LeBlanc. Thanks for listening.